All right, folks, welcome to our seminar today. My name is Vadim. I'm here with Sergei Revzin. We are on the School16 team. We're joined by the Suffolk University Center for Continuing and Professional Education. Today, we're going to be talking about advancing your career in 2024 with non-coding tech skills, specifically sharing tips and tricks and what we're hearing in the market today from the experts that we work with on a continuing basis, because obviously, as we know, these trends are constantly changing. Our background, just to start off, is in the technology sector on the non-coding side. So I personally worked in sales for a number of years and then sales engineering and product management. I saw someone here was interested in product management. So that's how I entered product management, through experience in sales in the tech sector. And then became a professor at NYU and also started a bunch of my own startups and technology companies. And yes, we are twins. So if you think you're seeing double, you're not. We're identical twin brothers, hence the same last name. And we actually had somewhat similar career paths. Sergey followed more the venture route. So Sergey, you can share a little bit more with the new folks that came in as we start the presentation about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Vadim. And so yeah, Vadim and I, we had similar interests. We both took that Java and C++ class in high school and both decided not to study CS. But I started my career in sales, did a little bit of marketing as well because I was working for a very small startup, and ended up starting a number of entrepreneurial projects that led to me running entrepreneurship programs at a national nonprofit called Venture for America. You might remember Andrew Yang, who ran for president a couple of years ago. He ran that nonprofit, helped them raise their first venture capital fund, and used that experience to then join NYU at the Entrepreneurial Institute, where I ran their venture capital fund, made technology investments, helped hundreds of students from freshmen to PhDs start companies. And then that led to me and Vadim then starting School16. And so we have a deep passion for education. We have a deep passion for technology. We've had some amazing opportunities to have some amazing business experience throughout our careers, and love combining those things because they have enabled us to have some interesting success and experiences in our careers. And we want to share that with others because it can be intimidating. I can see here some folks have experience with, getting a little deeper in technology like Monica and learning how to do some SQL queries, right? Some other folks that maybe have a little bit less deep experience in technology, but we can all benefit from understanding how technology can help us advance our careers in business. And so that's what we're going to talk about here today. I'm going to share a quick agenda here. Welcome to the few folks that just joined the call. Thank you for joining us. We are recording this session, and we can send it to the folks that joined this call as well if you want to review it. So now we're going through our introduction. We're almost done here. The next few minutes, we're going to start talking about what skills are in demand by employers, right? Whether you want to get a promotion in your current company, you want to get advanced and get paid more at another company. We have a lot of folks that join our programs at School16, running an education company, that want to change careers, right? I saw somebody in the chat has been trying to get their master's degree. Obviously, we're huge proponents of education, advanced education. Personally, Vadim and I don't have master's degrees, and we've taught MBA students and PhDs anyway, so you don't have to have an advanced degree to be successful in business and tech. That's part of the reason why we're working with the Suffolk Center of Continuing Professional Education, because there are other ways to get great experience, to advance your career, get paid well, and do meaningful work. AI, we all hear so much about it. We're going to talk about what actually makes a difference, right? Beyond the buzzword, to give you some direction. We're going to talk about how to get opportunities through unique channels. We know that a lot of people join these events. They're interested in getting new jobs or changing careers. So we're going to talk about that as part of our event today. And we're going to have more of an open Q&A at the end. But I will encourage folks not to wait till the end, right? In case we're going over, if you have questions, do drop them in the chat. It helps us understand what you're looking for if you want us to dig deeper. It also helps us build a relationship with you. If you add me on LinkedIn after, I'll know, Monica, for example, that you put something in the chat, or Donna. It'll be a friendly name, and then we'll be connected and we'll be part of your network. So we'd love to hear from you throughout in this chat. but you'll have an opportunity to unmute yourself as well. So why don't we get started? And I want to get started by talking about foundational knowledge, right? Again, although what you might see on the slide might seem like, okay, this is just a kind of a list of business functions in a company, right? The depth in which we have experience in these different functions largely depends on our work experience, largely depends on how much we're coached in our company, how much the companies we work for actually help us understand how the business works. I'll be the first to tell you that my first couple of jobs, the companies were awful at it. I finished those jobs. I can barely tell you now what those companies do. And why? Because no one actually sat down with me to help me understand the business case, the customers, what problems they're trying to solve, how the product works. And so I share this slide to start our conversation today, to share with you that based on our experience and based on our experience graduating over 500 students from School16 in the last couple of years who've had great success in their careers moving on afterwards. One of the biggest factors is deeply understanding how the business actually works and how the different teams within the business work, what these people actually do, right? If you're in marketing, great, you probably get marketing, but what do the salespeople do? What do the operations people do in the systems and processes that they create? What are the product managers? And even what you don't see here, because we're talking more about business acumen, is what do the engineers do and how do people make product decisions in the company? Because the deeper your knowledge is of how the businesses actually function, the more likely that you become seen as a leader and you get better opportunities. So that is sort of the foundation of what we're talking about here. Yes, we're going to talk about specifically what skills you need to build. But if we back up a second before the specific skills, you really need to deeply understand the business case.
So part of today's conversation is going to be about AI skills that actually matter. But as we're going through this content, we want you to keep in mind that a lot of what we talk about is designed to give you insight into how to sell yourself, how to demonstrate your abilities to organizations or within organizations, how to position your experience when you're changing careers or when you're looking to get, let's say, to the next step in your career, and you might have an experience gap. We all at some point will experience an experience gap, right? Sergei and I left finance to get into tech. There had to be some experience gap that was adjusted and addressed to get into sales roles, right? When I got into product, similarly, I had to demonstrate my ability to work with engineers. And this is how you're going to be able to get to the next level. Oftentimes, I'll speak with people that are very experienced, right? But they don't know how to actually position that experience correctly and in a compelling way to either an employer or their boss or a boss in another department to get access to that opportunity. And remember, the story that you tell to other people is what's going to set you up for your success. So part of the discussion is going to be about AI skills that actually matter. And what we want to do is showcase a specific example, right, of how this could work for you and how this worked for a specific human. There is a lot of confusion about AI, not just amongst the general public, but actually within organizations. Sergei and I attend countless events where there's executives that are thinking about the problem. They may even be investing in the idea of, okay, how do we use AI to automate systems? How do we use AI to reduce costs, right? Whatever it is. But they're not exactly sure in many cases how they can go ahead and implement that. So from the perspective of what it actually means to leverage AI today to position ourselves and elevate ourselves in the eye of an employer or a boss or whoever it is, it actually comes down to much simpler than learning any particular tool. The tool itself or the specific AI software doesn't matter as much as the problem that you are addressing and solving, and being able to communicate how you're using these tools to actually address real business cases. So remember, there's going to be a lot more tools that come into the market, right? It's probably happening on a weekly or maybe even a daily basis where AI tools flood the market. And different organizations are going to decide to use different tools. And you can't learn all of them, but what you can do is understand how to think about specific business problems, how to apply these tools to solve these problems, and then to demonstrate your expertise. In the end of the day, organizations give you promotions. They give you the opportunity to transition to a new career because they believe you have some kind of expertise that they need. That's it. All they want to do is make sure that you're productive in day one. Okay. And there's a reason why the further you get into your career, the higher salaries are, is because they believe with the experience you've already developed over time, you'll be able to then come in and be productive as quickly as possible. And any organization, large or small, for-profit or nonprofit, is going to be thinking about things in that same lens. So let's tell the story of Tolu Lawal. This is a case study about one of our lead instructors, Tolu. He is obviously working for a technology company, has worked for several technology companies, right? He's now at Google running customer success. He was at Stripe. He was at Uber. But he was never a technologist per se, right? He's been in customer success. He ran product operations, which sounds like a product management role, but isn't. He ran enterprise deals and sales within Uber. He was always the business guy within technology companies, but that didn't preclude him from figuring out how to position himself as the technologist even within these roles. So as we tell Tolu's story and why he's been able to consistently level up in his career, you'll be able to see why he became kind of like an MVP within not only his customer success management team at Google, but also seen as an expert across different departments at Google, then being brought in to actually train different folks, right? Which of course opens you up to different opportunities. So he was able to essentially transform how people thought of him, right? Not just as a customer success person, but as someone that can bring in a solution into an organization where there's a need and then be seen as the person that can implement it to get results. So first, of course, he had to think about the problem, right? Now, it wasn't as clean as him, put it together a slide deck like this in the beginning, right? It got clean over time. In the beginning, it's messy. But when you're thinking about the problem for your particular organization or department, that's where you have to start. Forget about the tools you're going to use. You have to start with a problem. So now you're thinking about things like a bit of a scientist, right? How do we actually come up with a problem and a hypothesis to solve that problem? That is an actually really in-demand skill for organizations. And oftentimes when they're interviewing you for a role, they're going to be thinking about this, right? Can they look at a problem and figure out an efficient hypothesis to solve that problem? So his problem was simple yet difficult, right? He was actually on a team that was managing a lot of customers, 700 customers that he himself personally was responsible for, right? Now, he can't on a daily basis manage 700 customers. So obviously there were some that had more demand from his time than others, but still he spent a ton of time in logistics, just emailing them, following up over emails, sending calendar invites, remembering, having systems in place to remember when to follow up with a customer when they were due for a renewal, right? When to follow up with a customer that just had a business case where he may be able to upsell them, which was part of his job as a customer success manager. And a lot of that work was time consuming and very manual, and certainly he missed opportunities because of it. And there were other customer success managers and departments that felt that same pain, but they weren't exactly sure how to solve it because it's Google. They thought, okay, this is how we do things, right? And maybe there was just not enough time to solve that problem. But he saw the value of solving it now so that he could free up his time to do higher value work. And of course, AI was going to be a really good use case for that. So he sat down and thought about the problem. And obviously, the next step is to actually map out some kind of solution. Now, in this example, I really simplified how that solution came to be, right? But it starts with something simple, and then it breaks down to a larger project that you then break down into smaller parts. And in his case, the solution overall sounded relatively simple. Now, of course, it took months to implement, and we'll talk about what he actually did to solve that problem. But he used AI to automate at least some of the manual work that was required to manage customer follow-ups, meeting scheduling, Google Calendar, and all that different stuff. Okay, great. So problem, solution. What's next? Well, the next step is actually to break it down into as much detail as possible, right? That's the first thing you have to think about. Okay, if this is a solution, what are the steps right now that I'm doing to solve this particular problem, right? All that manual work, what I'm doing, literally mapping out exactly step by step, going into your inbox, right? Following for the customer, using a proprietary system that Google uses, Google Calendar, Excel, spreadsheets, all these different things that were happening very, very manually, he outlined. And then it helped him visualize where the solution opportunities might be. But more importantly, it put him on a roadmap to actually research what tools would have to be applied to solve that particular problem. And so for him, those tools were the following, right? He had to put together some practical knowledge of Google Apps script, right? And again, he didn't figure this out in 10 minutes. He had to do some research. He had to set aside some time to do some research about what tools can help him automate his processes. In this case, it was Google Apps Script, Gemini, which was called Bard at the time, which you'll see in the screenshots, Google Sheets. Those were the primary three tools. Now, Google Sheets here to you. He didn't have to learn that much, although he did have to learn, probably some custom formulas, maybe some macros they had to put together. Bard, he was essentially using to help him write code, right? Because he wasn't a coder. He still isn't, although he, of course, learned a ton through this process. And then Google Apps Script to help put everything together, to actually have an application that runs that automates this work, okay? Now, I know this sounds maybe a little bit overwhelming, but in this case, these are the tools he needed to use to solve this problem, to fix this particular manual work. He leveraged some internal resources, like he went to people within the organization to help him kind of figure out if he's on the right track. So he was checking himself throughout the process. For you, that solution might be a lot simpler while still leveraging AI and sort of elevating yourself and your experiences. But this is what he had to learn, right? So he didn't start with the tools by any means. He figured out this is what he needed through his research and his process. So I'm going to go through and show you some screenshots of exactly what he did, right? So in this case, and again, this was months of work. I'm kind of narrowing it down into a couple of slides. Months of work on the side that ended up bringing a ton of benefit to him. But here he's using Bard to essentially figure out how to put together these simple code snippets that can create that automation, right? On the next slide, you'll see how he implemented that into a Google Sheets document. This particular tab was how he automated sending Google Calendar invitations, right? With a custom message that you'll see in the description. Literally, it says, "Hi, grabbing time to touch base," right? This is him automating that work through Google Sheets that was connected to that script that he wrote with code that he got from Bard, right? That he had to work through to make sure that it actually works. So Google Sheets, he has a bunch of tabs open here, right? But at the bottom that you can see, but this is kind of as simple as it looked when he came to the final product. And again, no one told him how to do this. He figured it out himself, right? He didn't have his boss checking this work. It was just trial and error until this was the finished product and he was actually automating. You can see how busy his calendar is with the 700 customers that he's managing, but he was actually automating this big headache for him that did take hours of work every single week. So as you can see here, when it comes down to whatever problem you're looking to solve, I see, I think Matthew said that you're trying to automate lead sourcing for sales right now. This is a perfect example. Sales automation is a perfect use case for actually automating some work. And as you're developing this experience, Matthew, as you're learning these different tools, right, obviously applying some of the skills you already had in your previous career, this is what you need to be referencing on your resume or in your interviews or talking to your boss. I think in this case, you said you want to transition career, so it would be on your resume, right? A lot of people, and this is the discussion we're going to have in a couple of seconds here, a lot of people assume there's certain things I can talk about when it comes to my experience on my resume, and there's certain things I can't. Maybe because they weren't part of my full-time job, right? Or maybe because they weren't part of my sort of written responsibilities in my job when I entered the role. But you better bet that this experience that Tolu created for himself, not only did it give him opportunities to train other people internally within the organization, not only did it give him opportunities to actually teach leadership about how to create cost savings and time savings and catch deals that maybe might be going away and catch upsell opportunities, but it's going to create opportunities for him for future roles because now he is a unique expert. Not a lot of people in the world have this specific experience. And he very much so, I bet, will have several bullets on his resume or LinkedIn, how he worked on this particular project on the side. So the next thing that we want to do is start talking through what that may mean for you. And I'll pass it back to Sergei.
Great, thanks, Vadim. I think that's a great story of how Tolu consistently, and this isn't the first time he's done it at this job. He actually went from Uber to Stripe, I think Uber, Google, Stripe, back boomerang to Google, right? And so why is that possible? Because they see the quality of his work and he's really branded himself as a problem solver, right? And that's really what we encourage all of you to think about is how can I be seen as the problem solver inside my company or the company that I want to work for? Because that's ultimately how people are going to take a chance on you and how you get the actually really well-paying opportunities that you want. So one of the things that we do actually a lot at School16 in the classroom is we talk about how you can actually create experiences for yourself, just as Tolu did, without waiting for permission to do it. And we've had a number of students that finished our programs that were able to get a new job, or were able to get a different job in a different department of the same company, because they did this, right? Because they took on a new project or solved a particular problem through a project that then they showcased to other people on the team and actually communicated it. Communicating, by the way, is another thing, right? It's one thing to do the project, but then actually letting people know that you did it. That's really important. So we talk about that a lot in our programs. But we wanted to have a discussion with all of you. This is an opportunity for some folks to unmute themselves if they want. If you want to do it in the chat, that's okay too. To talk about how to get experience that actually showcases your business acumen, right? So for example, it looks like Matthew here was talking about automating lead sourcing. Do you want to share anything about that, of how you're thinking about solving that particular problem, and what you're thinking of doing with that, Matthew?
Yeah, sure. So I basically work in like event sponsorship sales, and so I look at exhibitions basically, and normally my team manually looks at exhibitors lists of other events, and usually those lists are lists of logos on a website. So all the other sales reps they're not using any automation, and I'm trying to learn automation to basically build a list of sales leads using, and I'm just learning this as I go because I have no idea about a lot of these steps, but I know the problem I want to solve. So it's, how do I grab a logo and then convert that into a company name and a company URL and do that for an entire page of logos? So I've just been Googling, I've been using like ChatGPT, and I've just used Gemini for the first time today, just asking questions like, how do I do this without coding? I've made a few bottlenecks, but I'm progressing on this kind of problem solving thing. But I guess that's the business problem I'm trying to solve.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And bottlenecks are part of the problem, part of the challenge, and that's when the learning happens, right? So it's working through those, and it's really cool to hear how you're using AI to teach you. You're turning it into a teacher. You're asking it questions. How do I do this without code? You're probably figuring out how to prompt it in different ways if it's not giving you the right answer. And you're absolutely right. If you think about it, right, if other salespeople on the team and other salespeople on other teams that your competitors are not going through this automation process and doing it manually, by the time you figure this out, right, you can do the job 10 times or 100 times faster than them. And how compelling is that story, right? Even if you decide, like you said, you want to get into product and want to get out of sales, how compelling will that story be to that future employer? Let's say if you apply to a job to be a product manager for a technology company that serves, in-person events, right, with exhibitors and conferences. You know so much about that because that's your job as a sales professional. So you can come in now not only as the person that understands their customers really, really well, but also the person that understood how to use different technologies to actually solve the business problem, which is what product managers think about every single day too, right? And so I love that example. Thank you so much for sharing that. Does anybody have any other either projects that they want to work on, or maybe problems that they want to solve internally in their company to give themselves that experience of using different tools, technologies to solve a problem, or to maybe go and work, get a little more experience in a department in the company that you haven't had experience in by helping somebody with a project? Anybody want to talk through that here like we just did with Matthew? I'll give you a quick example of a woman that went through our program at School16, where she was working in a customer support type of role. Actually, she was based in Tunisia, working at a startup, a large startup with a lot of funding, working in a customer support type of role. Really, really wanted to be in marketing. Didn't have the experience in marketing to really justify it, and was passed up for roles before. And one of the things she did at School16 is she worked on what we call a marketing analysis project, where you go, you find a business, maybe a small business or a nonprofit, you evaluate their website, you evaluate their social media, you look at their newsletter, and then you draft an email that you would send to the chief marketing officer of that company with suggestions of how you would improve their marketing stack using technology and using your own ideas about what they can do better to attract customers. Well, she used that project to apply it to her own company, to a new product that was being developed in that company. And then she reached out to the CEO, and she also reached out to a couple of people on the marketing team to share her ideas. Well, what happened was that she started to be seen as somebody with good ideas, and she started to be seen as somebody with some marketing chops, even though she didn't have that experience. And a couple months later, when there was an opportunity in a new division in that startup for a new digital marketer, she was given that role by the CEO. Now she actually runs an AI accelerator program in Tunisia, where she advises companies on marketing in that accelerator program. So you can see how you can, by working on a project either internally in your company that uses technology to solve problems, or understanding how to communicate how you would solve particular problems for a particular team in the company, it allows you to be seen as somebody different than who you were before. And you can get those opportunities that otherwise you thought might not be available to you. You could do that in a company. If you don't work in a company that gives you that opportunity, you could do it for projects that your friends are working on. You can volunteer for a company in your local area to solve a particular problem for them. It doesn't matter how you actually design this project, but thinking of a project like this woman did, or like Matthew is doing internally in his company, is how you go from having, one set of skills and experiences that make people see you as one type of professional, to changing how people see you and getting those new opportunities that you might not have had before. So the rest of the call today, we have about 25 minutes. Again, please do write in the chat if you have some questions. Actually, I see a question here from Andrea. How do you feel about joining committees that are involved in solving a problem in the organization? I think that could be a great idea. Sometimes when companies or organizations create committees, those committees are sort of a way to reach out for help. The committee is created because they want people to solve problems. A lot of times what happens in committees is there's a lot of conversation and not enough action. Again, not saying anything about any particular committees that you may be a part of in your organization, right? But that's very common in organizations. Committees have a reputation. And so if you're then the person who collects the information from those committees and then puts it into action by actually solving the particular problem, without waiting for permission, then that is an excellent way of using that committee to actually bring value to yourself and the organization. So I love that idea, Andrea. The bigger the organization is, the more there are groups, affinity groups, committees that you can join to address particular issues in the organization. But then you just want to make sure you're the person that's in that committee that then immediately after that meeting, where everybody talked for an hour and brainstormed great ideas, you're the one that's putting it into action and following up with people in the organization and saying how you're going to be doing it, and then actually making it happen. Right. So it can be a great way of doing it. Thank you for suggesting that, Andrea. So we'll keep an eye on the chat if anybody else has any other suggestions or questions as we talk through the next half of our presentation, which is, now that you're the person that is finding problems to solve, you're the person that's building the business acumen, you're the person that's understanding how are we serving customers, how are we, making our own product decisions to make our product really good, and getting deeply familiar with these things like Matthew's doing in his organization, then how do you now stand out, right? How do you now take all these things that you're doing and then actually getting the career outcome that you want, which is whether getting a promotion, getting paid more, changing careers, or working for an interesting company, maybe working for a technology company if that's what you dreamt of doing. And so we're going to talk about two things, which is networking, how we think about networking at School16, and how to build that strong business foundation. We're going to dive deeper into that. One of the things that I want to talk a little bit about with networking in particular is reframing it a little bit. Which is that for many of us sitting in the room, Well, first of all, the 22 of you that are here, you're already doing it, right? The people the probably dozen or so people that have written in the chat, you're actually proactively networking. You might not even know it. But I'm going to remember Matthew's name. I'm going to remember Kelly's name. I'm going to remember all these names if you add me on LinkedIn, right? So that is part of it. So I want to redefine networking a little bit, because for some people, it feels like a sleazy thing to do. You're asking for stuff. You're the kind of stereotypical slick backed hair, used car salesperson, right? That is not what networking is. In fact, I saw a video the other day of somebody talking about how do you go from being, an entrepreneur who's a millionaire versus an entrepreneur who's a billionaire. And he talks about, well, billionaires spend a lot more time on networking. They always know who to call to solve a business problem, right? And so we have to start thinking about like these people, right? And I love, actually, thank you, Monica, for what you said, which is don't start out by asking for something, start by offering something that you can do for the other person. I love that. Right? Getting into a relationship with a person that you don't know, whether it's on LinkedIn or at a conference or wherever it might be, with the expectation of we're going to help each other, helps you mentally reframe what that networking is, right? But ultimately, what do we do it for? We do it to meet cool people that, we can help them, and ultimately they can help us, right? And so what we talk a lot about at School16 is how do you get attention of interesting people? Important, I'll put in quotes, right? But ultimately, some people have more decision-making ability maybe than other people. And that's why I use the word important here. We don't have to kind of overthink it too much what we mean by that here, but getting attention of people that can somehow impact or change our lives. And ultimately, maybe we can change theirs as well. Right. And so we talk a lot about LinkedIn. We're actually sharing this LinkedIn guide. If you go to this link, s16.live/LinkedIn guide. We have an in-depth guide of how you can make your LinkedIn really powerful, really amazing. In our program, that's a requirement when people join School16's programs, is actually making your LinkedIn great. Why? Because that is your marketing. That is the kind of first way to showcase your personal brand. We're not going to talk too much about we're not going to talk really much at all about LinkedIn here today, but do check out this guide if you've been kind of putting off improving your profile, because it is important. That is, especially in technology, that is how that's their first impression of you. That is how they decide if you're credible or not. And so it is important to work on it. But that kind of authentic network building that, Monica is referring to, right? Which is coming into a relationship, wanting to offer something, actually helping people. There are a couple ways of thinking about it. So we want to create a framework for you, right? When we do an event, we kind of treat it as almost a class. So you're almost kind of part of seeing an inside look at one of our classes. So the framework is there's two ways to think about networking activities, right? So that it's not random. Because for most people, by the way, it's pretty random. I'm going to this event. Maybe I'll meet somebody cool. Let me try to meet 3 people before I finish this beer, and then I'll leave. And that's it, right? But that's okay. That's still that you showed up to the event. You're less passive than somebody else, but it's not really a process. And so here's how we think about the process. There are 2 ways to think about it. One is your process of what you do every week or every month to proactively build your network if you don't have a good one yet. And number 2, how you actually activate that network once you've built it, right? Staying in touch, offering to help, and then actually asking for help when you need it in a tactful way. And I want to give you a quick example of Prabha, who is a product marketing manager. Actually, now she's a product manager at another company. She's already leveled up several times since we had an event with her about 1.5 years ago. But Prabha had graduated from college with not a lot of experience. She did start a nonprofit, though, in college. That was really cool. Like, she actually had an entrepreneurial endeavor that she could talk about. So more experience than other college kids, but she wanted to work at Facebook, and well, it's super competitive, even more competitive now, by the way, but super competitive when she graduated college. And so she knew she needed to do really proactive network building. So first of all, she reached out to everybody that she could to try to get some sort of introduction to somebody in the company. Importantly, she didn't ask for an interview. She didn't ask for a job. She just asked for advice. And a lot of people are really open to giving advice, right? We want to pay it forward. especially if I'm in my mid to late 20s, for example, and I work at Facebook, and there's this young woman who's reaching out to me who wants to work at Facebook, who's a little bit younger than me, and I've been through what she's been through. I want to give her advice, and I feel good being the person that she's asking advice for. So that's what she did. She didn't ask for a job. She just asked for advice. But she didn't just treat these conversations randomly, right? We talk a lot about School16. We actually work with our students to prepare them how to communicate their value, even when they're networking or having a seemingly innocuous conversation that doesn't feel like networking. And so she would prepare to understand how to plant little nuggets and stories of how she worked on her nonprofit, why she loves the work that Facebook, now Meta, is doing, why she wants to work at an amazing technology company and build and, also bringing in the skills that she has into the conversations as she asked those questions. So she did it in a very tactful way. But by the end of the conversation, to make sure that it doesn't just die off and nothing happens, she asked a question in a very tactful way. What do you think I could stand out, or what do you think I could do to stand out for a company like Facebook if I ever end up applying? If I ever want to do product marketing in a company like Facebook, what would you do in my situation to stand out? Well, a lot of people told her, you need to get this and that experience, you need to do X, Y, Z. But a few people told her that, the best way to stand out is actually a referral. I'm happy to refer you, right? So she didn't ask for a job. She didn't even ask for a referral. She just asked what she could do to stand out. She showed that she is someone that has a self-improvement attitude. And by the way, throughout the conversation, she already kind of sold herself a little bit. So that person really liked her, right? So, if she was somebody like Matthew, maybe she would mention that project that she's worked on in automation briefly through the conversation as they're talking through technology challenges, so that person then takes a chance on her. And then she did end up getting a job at Meta, working on their online dating product. I don't know if anybody knows that Facebook has a dating product. But that's how she started. And then she started working on other products and getting opportunities for other jobs later and promotions. And now she has a really great job title in another startup company. So transitioning a conversation a little bit from networking to then how to get noticed by hiring managers. And again, this could be internally in your own company. Prabha got promoted in her company many times. And so how do you actually get noticed? Because there are thousands of people and maybe even hundreds of thousands of people that are interested in the roles that you're interested in, that are interested in the promotion that you're interested in your company. So how do you get noticed? And I like this quote from Nick Mehta. Nick is a CEO of Gainsights. Nick is kind of credited to inventing customer success. Did he? I don't know, but now we think he did, because he started a company, Gainsight, that actually is a software company that is specifically targeted to customer success managers. And he's kind of talking about the reality of the competitiveness of the tech job market right now, and asking the question, well, how do you actually stand out? And I love this suggestion that he has in the bottom, which is, one idea is to find companies, software as a service companies, that are selling to the profession that you are in. That's why I gave that quick suggestion to Matthew of maybe if you're looking to become a product manager, maybe you're looking for companies, software companies that serve salespeople, or that serve, in-person events, exhibition type of events, where your expertise now is super valuable, where you're going to be taken seriously as a product visionary, as a person who understands product, the features, which is what you need to do as a PM, by the way, because you've been in that industry. Similar for customer success or sales or marketing or any job that you're trying to get into. If you're trying to change careers or level up your career, is focus on areas where you already have an unfair advantage, where you have knowledge that other people maybe don't have, and use that to get your foot in the door. Right. And of course, doing activities like what Matthew is doing right now, which is working in a project that's making him more technical because he wants to apply to a product management role where you have to really understand technology. That's going to be a part of it as well. Right. I'll share a quick story of Nicole Parada, who when I worked at NYU, that's when I first met Nicole. And she got her master's in public health. And she had experience in clinical trials. That was most of her experience, as you can see here. She wanted to transition to tech. And she actually got her master's to transition into tech. And it wasn't working. And so Vadim and I actually had started School16 not long before that. Obviously, we were starting out, and so we were talking to all sorts of students to get them into our programs. Now we're much bigger, and we have a lot of people applying to our programs. But this was sort of an opportunity for me to have a one-on-one conversation with Nicole, and she came to me and she said, "Sergey, I want to get into a tech company, but for some reason they're not taking me seriously." And I asked her, well, okay, what's happening? She was getting some interviews because she has a nice degree from NYU, but she wasn't getting past the first interview. I said, "What's happening, Nicole? How are you talking about your experience?" She was like, "Well, I'm talking about my clinical trials experience, but I'm talking about my passion for tech." I'm like, "Okay, but what do you mean by that?" And I actually found out because I worked with her at NYU. I knew that she had worked on a project where she created a hardware prototype to basically measure how the elderly walk, their gait, to understand if they're at risk of falling. Sounds super, super niche, but this is the kind of stuff that you think about when you're in healthcare. And she built a prototype. She talked to 50 customers, and that's about it. It didn't turn to a business. The prototype kind of barely worked. And so she said, "I don't talk about that at all in my interviews because like I didn't do that much." I'm like, "What do you mean, Nicole? You did a ton. You created a prototype from scratch. You interviewed customers to understand their problems. You interviewed healthcare providers to understand how they might help people who are older to make sure that they're decreasing their likelihood of falling, to find those, use analytics to find those problems before they happen. You did all this stuff. How are you not talking about this?" Well, she started talking about it. And she started applying to technology companies that focused on healthcare. And all of a sudden, she started getting tons of interviews, and she ended up getting a job in clinical trials coverage as an analyst at a technology company that serves hospital systems. And then by doing the kind of networking we're talking about here, by building relationships internally in the company, she had coffee chats every single week with different departments in her company. She was tapped to be the first product manager for a new product that they were building. So she went from no experience in tech to getting a tech job working more on the customer facing side to then getting a product management job all within less than a year without getting any kind of technology degree, because she actually worked on relevant project and because she learned how to build relationships and talk about herself. So you can start seeing the power of actually doing this work, that it's actually now more powerful than any particular type of degree or saying you studied something. And I've seen this kind of story time and time again play out with School16 students and with other people that I know in my network, right? And so we kind of already talked about this. I'll skip this slide and move on to this slide, which is Jason Lemkin. He's an influencer in venture capital and software. He started EchoSign. I think he sold to Adobe, e-signature company that they grew to a massive amount. And he's talking about, he hires people all the time. He's talking about how people can stand out. And you would be surprised how few people are good at this. Most people, what they do is when they're looking for opportunities, they just apply to jobs and maybe they have a cover letter that talks about some relevant skills. But what they don't do is they don't talk about how they're going to actually solve the company's problems. They don't actually make suggestions. They don't actually make observations of what the company could do better and show their passion for the business. So that's the suggestion that Jason is making here. This especially works really well at smaller companies, startups, technology companies that maybe raise some money and they want to hire really go-getter people. If you're applying to a job at a company, and it's especially if you're a career changer, they have to feel like you're already in the job. They have to feel like, what's it going to be like to work with this person? And your way to stand out from somebody who may have more years of experience than you is by telling them, reaching out on LinkedIn and telling them, writing it directly in an email to them as a follow-up to your application and cover letter, right? So I think this is really great advice from Jason. I suggest you follow him on LinkedIn because it shows how you can be kind of the more proactive person in a job search process or in a process where you're trying to get promoted than other people. And what's the valuable skill here? This presentation is about building skills and showcasing your skills. Through this process, you're showcasing your deep understanding of the business case of the customer, of the company you're approaching. That is the skill. Understanding the business case almost like the CEO does, almost like the active product manager in the company does. If you understand a company's business case and how they help their customers, and you deeply understand their customers, you're already well above 90% of people that are going over after those opportunities. Okay. Quick story as we're wrapping up here about Mayra Enriquez. She went through School16 also about a year ago. She was kind of stuck in this project coordinator role. She wanted to get into a big tech company. And she actually wanted to work for a company like Microsoft. Spoiler alert, she works there now. But Microsoft, Google, Facebook, there's other companies. And so when we talked to her, well, how did you get your first foot in the door to rebrand yourself as a tech professional? Because right now you're this you worked at a university, you've worked at these medical centers, community medical centers. Yeah, you've done some great work as a program manager. You could probably get a project management kind of job. She ended up getting customer success, but you're not seen as a tech person, right? And so what she did first is she started really using her project management experience and the project she worked on at School16 to get into a smaller startup as a customer success manager, right? Startups are oftentimes, they're trying to solve problems. If you have experience with their kind of product or their customers, they'll take a chance on you, more likely than a big company. And so she used her experience to get her foot in the door at a smaller company. So then she could start using these great words, like she understands how to use AWS, and she's been a partner to AWS. She's been in customer success now. Now she's using a title that's a tech title. And she was only at that job for 7 months before she started networking and got her opportunity as a program manager at Microsoft. And now she's been there for about a little over a year, right? So I think she went to School16 about 2 years ago now, actually. And so, this is how you go through the process of redefining yourself as a professional. You work on projects, you do the networking, you get that first foot in the door, maybe not in the exact opportunity that you wanted, but that rebrands you and that acts as a stepping stone to get to the next stage like Mayra did. So that's the sort of toward the end of our presentation. We'll open up to Q&A in the last 5 minutes here, but I do want to share a special announcement to the 22 people that are here because you took time out of your day to join this session and ask great questions and write in the chat. Thank you so much for doing that. We wanted to share this special announcement that is not public yet. Nobody knows about this. It's not on our website. It's not on the Suffolk website, but we are launching a collaboration with Suffolk University Center for Continuing and Professional Education to bring this kind of education to more people and help people level up their careers with the programs that we know work really well to do so, to improve your business acumen and really make you seen as a person who solves problems with technology. We have what we call a Tech Career Acceleration Program, a technology track that lasts for 2 months, but it's online, it's part-time. You don't have to quit your job. It's in the evenings if you're in the East Coast from 6 to 8 p.m. twice a week, where we provide the network for you. You're learning from people like Tolu. You're learning from people like Alex, Ali, and Adria. And you're getting to meet these people every day, but you're also learning how they solve problems, and you work on projects yourself to really level up your career. And now we're able to do this after several years in the market with a great stamp of approval from a fantastic organization like Suffolk that are really experts in education, right? So we're bringing really the professional experience that we have and the education experience we have from Suffolk and also from NYU, working there for several years, and helping people level up their careers in a short period of time by working on things that matter and not having you spin cycles studying things that you're ultimately not going to end up using. And again, because you are here at this event, we're offering for anybody that applies by tomorrow, it's a very short application, you automatically qualify for a 15% reduction in your tuition cost. Our goal as an institution is to make our programs more affordable. So we're making that offer to you now. If you apply today, you can go to this link or simply just scan this right now on your phone to open up the application. Again, it's a very simple application. We just want to know what are your goals and a little bit about your experience so we can actually see if we can help you. That's our goal. We have a high completion rate in our programs, and we have a really high employment rate and promotion rate for people that graduate our programs, but that's because we go through this process of an application. However, it's not designed to be super hard. It's just designed for us to get to know you. So if you do this today and apply by tomorrow, you'll automatically qualify for that reduction in tuition, and we'll schedule a program interview with you. You can also follow us here on social media. This is our page on LinkedIn. Add me on LinkedIn and Vadim. Again, we want to be part of your network. So do make sure you do that, so you can benefit, even if you don't end up doing School16. We want to make sure, you can follow what we share on LinkedIn, so that you can maybe join a future program or just hear that advice and connect with people that we know. We also share actively on Instagram and TikTok, so that, because there's, we all have different formats of how we consume information these days, right? All right, we have a couple minutes left here. I haven't looked at the chat. Vadim, maybe I don't know if I missed anything, but anybody have any questions? Okay, let's see here. Matthew, program looks like it's US hour, 6 p.m. Do you have anything friendly for European hours? So right now, Matthew, our program is 6 p.m. So I think you said you're in the UK. It'd be quite late for you. We do have a mentor, one of our main mentors and coaches, Carlotta. She is in the United Kingdom as well. And so she offers office hours at times that are more friendly to you. That being said, the classes themselves are in Eastern time. We do record every session. So if some days, it's too late for you to stay up and you miss a session, you can watch a recording. But yeah, they're on Eastern time right now. Okay. Any other questions or anything anybody wanted to talk through, since we have you all here still for the next few minutes? Okay. All right. Well, excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody that joined us here today, the support of the Suffolk Center of Continuing Professional Education. Alvaro, does it look like you had a question? I want to give you a chance to do it. If you did, I saw you unmute yourself.
I wanna say thanks.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Alvaro. I'm going to actually drop my LinkedIn here, so that's really easy for you guys. If you do want to add me or add Vadim, you'll be able to do so. So let me just drop my profile here. Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you for coming to the event and for your contribution. In the chat, again, I want to thank the Suffolk University Center of Continuing Professional Education for not only helping us put on this event, but for supporting the work we do here at School16 and launching this new program with us. And for everybody that joined us here today and stayed till the end and contributed in the chat, that's what makes these events great. That's what makes it better than just coming, falling asleep halfway through a Zoom session. We can use technology like Zoom to our advantage to connect with people like Matthew in the UK, like other folks here in Boston, like me in Mexico City, right? That's why we use these technologies to offer these types of this content and these classes. So thank you for being proactive and active in the chat here. And we will send the recording to you if you ever want to review it. But we do encourage you to look at it if you ever want to reference any of the information. And if you do want to dive deeper into this stuff, we encourage you to apply to School16 in collaboration with Suffolk, this new program that we're launching. And at minimum, you'll get on a call with one of our admissions directors, or maybe with me and Vadim, where we'll talk through your challenges and see if we can help you out to get to the next step in your career. Thank you, folks, so much. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you at the next event. Bye, everyone.
Bye, folks.